You found us at Invest in Square Feet, the podcast where we turn square feet into square deals. I'm your host, Matt Shields, and today we've got an episode that might just change the way you look at sales forever. Joining us is the one and only Jay Connor, a master at turning chatter into cheddar. If you're new to sales or still scratching your head about attracting private money, you're in for a treat. Jay's here to spill the beans on one of the biggest blunders in the real estate game, and that is talking too much. Yep, you heard that right. We'll dive into how you can transform from a chatty salesperson to a savvy teacher, winning over private lenders with ease. So grab your notepad because we won't want to miss any of these golden nuggets of wisdom. Ready to level up your real estate game? Let's get to work.
There's a lot of differences because of the way I was going about the business. In the mobile home business, you've got a brand new product that's never been lived in to sell, and you've got financing and insuring that goes along with it, and you take care of all that. So when I started in single family houses, I wasn't building new homes. I was buying, and I still am today. I've renovated over 500 single family homes now. And so we buy homes typically and properties typically that were in distress. Either the property had problems or the sellers had problems or both, and were in some type of distress. So it all starts with helping people. The commonality between the products is it's all about having a servant's heart and leading with helping other people with a solution to their problem. But as far as the logistics and the moving parts of the business, I'd buy a property and then typically renovate it, rehab it, and turn it into a brand new, absolutely beautiful home, and then sell it either creatively, meaning sell it on terms and be the bank, or put it in the multiple listing service and list it with my realtor and cash out. So the renovation, the rehabbing was a big learning curve. I had never done that. And the funding of the deals was very different. In the mobile home business, you had what was called a wholesale line of credit that you had through your bank or your lender, and you used that line of credit to buy homes at wholesale, put them on the retail sales center, and then turn around and sell them, and you had financing to go along with it. In the world of single-family houses, though, it was a little bit similar. I had a line of credit at the bank as I started out, and I would use that line of credit to buy existing single-family houses, renovate them, turn around and sell them and cash out. That worked, Matt, really well the first 6 years from 2003 until 2009. I'm talking about the funding and having a line of credit at the local bank to do the funding of my deals. But things got turned upside down very quickly in January 2009 when I called up my banker, and I'd already done a ton of deals with Steve was his name. And I called him up and I had 2 houses under contract to buy. I thought everything was fine. I thought my line of credit was intact.
Yeah.
Nobody told me otherwise. And so I called up Steve, told him about my 2 deals I had under contract. He and I had had this kind of funding conversation many times. And I learned like that very quickly that my line of credit had been shut down. I had no line of credit at the bank. And my first thought was, it sure would have been nice if Steve had told me that before I went and put earnest money down on houses that I couldn't get back in 2009. And so I had a problem. By the way, Matt, these people going around saying every problem's an opportunity, I want to throw up. Stop telling me that mess. I didn't have an opportunity. I had a problem and I needed a fix to my problem. I hung up the phone with my banker, Steve, and I sat right here at this desk, Matt, and I asked myself a very important question. And this question that I asked myself will help any of your listeners right now fix whatever problem is in their life, personal, financial, relationships, career, health. It don't matter what your problem is. Here's the question to ask yourself that I ask myself. And that question is very simply, who do I know that can help me with my problem? One problem people have is they're fearful of asking for help, right? And we're created. We need help. We're not supposed to be out here on an island by ourselves.
Yeah.
So I asked myself that question, who can help me with my problem? And I immediately thought of Jeff Blankenship, good friend of mine, and Carol Joyce, my wife, and he was living in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time, doing what I was doing, flipping houses. And I called him up and I told him what had happened. And he said, Jay, welcome to the club. I said, what club is that? He said, the club of losing your line of credit at the bank. They just shut me down last week. I said, Jeff, how you going to fund your deals? He said, have you ever heard of private money? I said, no, I've never heard of private money. He said, have you ever heard of self-directed IRAs and how individuals can use their retirement funds and be a passive investor and loan you money and fund your real estate deals out of their retirement money? I said, no, I never heard about that. Jeff opened up the door for me on those two subjects. And I studied private money. I studied self-directed IRAs. I established a relationship with a self-directed IRA company to where I could refer people in my own network to move their retirement funds over and start funding my deals. So here's what's interesting, Matt. In less than 90 days, I raised $2,150,000 in private money funding that I didn't have prior to that. All I had was $1 million line of credit down at the bank. And what's funny about that, Matt? That $2 million that I attracted and raised, I didn't ask anybody for money. In fact, to this date, since 2009, I've never asked anybody for money, and I've never pitched a deal. And people say, Jay, how have you got $8.5 million in funding available to you that you just moved from property to property and you never asked for it? Here is the secret sauce. I started out, and I still do today, by simply putting on my teacher hat, my private money teacher hat. Of my 47 private lenders that we have today, not one of them had ever heard of private money or private lending until I put on my teacher hat and I told them what it was and how they could earn high rates of return safely and securely. And I taught people. So what I did first is I put my program together, my opportunity, if you will, together that I was going to offer people without bringing up any kind of deals. Because if you talk about a deal you got that you need funded and you're talking about somebody being a private lender, desperation has got a smell to it. And you already sound desperate without even trying to sound desperate, talking about this opportunity. Now I got a deal over here that need funded. So we separate the conversations of teaching people in our own networks what private money is, how they can get involved totally passively, and then having a deal for them to fund. So how do I get them to fund a deal without asking them to fund a deal and pitching a deal? Here's the secret. It's called the good news phone call. How in the world does that work? I've got a private lender, for example, that's already told me they've got $200,000, for example, that they want to invest and be a passive investor. And so, okay, I'll say, I'll put your money to work for you just as soon as possible. So a week or two will go by and I call up and I'm going to give the script right now for the good news phone call. So I call them up, Matt, let's say you're one of my new private lenders. I call you up, I say, Matt, hope you're having a good day. I've got great news for you, Matt. I can now put your money to work. I got a house in Newport that I got under contract. The after repaired value is $200,000. The funding required for the deal is $150,000. I know you got 150 because you already told me. The funding requires $150,000. Closing is next Wednesday, so you'll need to have your funds wired to my real estate attorney's trust account by next Tuesday. I'm going to have my real estate attorney email you the wiring instructions. That's the end of the conversation. The most stupid question I could ask Matt in this example is, do you want to fund the deal? Of course you want to fund the deal. You've been waiting for the phone call because you love the program that I already taught you, the interest rates you're going to get paid, how you're protected, how you can get your money back in 90 days or less. And in addition to that, if you have already moved your retirement funds or a portion of them over to the self-directed IRA company that I recommended, you've moved it over, the money is sitting there and you're not making any money until I put your money to work because I'm ethically bound to do it. And you moved your money over at my recommendation and you're waiting for me to put the money to work. So it's just a very simple sequence of how and when we talk to people, our new potential private lenders, and then when we've got deals to fund.
That is really interesting. I'm curious, how do you establish the conversation in the very beginning, right? Like, how do you find the people that might be interested in doing these different deals? And everybody has a little bit different recipe that they're looking for. Maybe some people might have some problems, some issues with taxes or any of those types of things. Everybody has their own little recipe that they're trying to solve. What does that initial conversation look like for you? Again, how are you finding these people? How are you bringing this topic up with them? And I guess that gets back to your original pitch, right? Your original presentation, what the opportunity looks like.
Sure. Let me answer that question in a short story with how I got my very first private lender. It was at church. So my wife, Carol Joy, and I are very involved in church. And so one of the first questions to ask yourself when you're looking to start attracting private money without chasing, begging, selling, persuading, or trying to talk anybody into anything. It's a lot easier to attract it and get it chasing you than you chasing it, because I've discovered the more I chase money, the more it eludes me. So I
Mhm.
don't chase money. So how it started out was it was on a Wednesday night at church. The question to ask yourself is where do you in your life right now, where do you go and you see the same people every week? Now, why is that an important question? If you see the same people, that group of people or those groups of people that you see every week, you've already got relationship and trust and likability established,
Mhm.
right? That's already in place. So one place that Carol Joy and I go to 3 times a week is church. So it was on a Wednesday night at 7:30. We went to Bible study, and I walked in the foyer. There was a gentleman there that I was looking for that I'd known for quite a few years. He'd known me as well. His name was Wayne. And so I walked up to him, and here's exactly what I said to Wayne. I said, Wayne, I said, I got something I'd like to visit with you about confidentially after Bible study. Have you got a few minutes we could visit? He said, sure. So we had Bible study and we finished, and he came over to me and we walked down to the nursery, went to the door and shut the door. And here's exactly what I said to Wayne. I said, Wayne, everybody in this town. And he did. He was the original Zenith television dealer. And if you don't know who the Zenith television dealer is, that means you're too young to remember life before Walmart came to town.
Yep.
And so he had put a television in everybody's house. And I said, Wayne, everybody in this town, I said, you're well connected. You're very involved in the Rotary Club. And Wayne, I need your help. There's the magic phrase. Right there's the magic phrase. I said, Wayne, I need your help. I said, I have now opened up my real estate investing business to people that I know and trust, and it's by referral only. And I am now paying insane high rates of returns to people that would like to invest with me in my deals. So when you run across, Wayne, somebody that's complaining about the volatility of the stock market, losing money in the stock market, or the hardly nothing interest rates that the local bank is paying in certificates of deposit, would you refer them to me and I'll tell them about my program? What do you think Wayne said? Wayne said, Jay, what you got in mind? What kind of program you got? And I said, Wayne, are you saying you might be interested? He says, yeah, I might be interested. Me and my wife are only getting 3% in the local bank, which is what it was in 2009. And we're losing money in the stock market. What kind of deal have you got? What kind of interest rate are you paying? And I said, Wayne, that depends on the deal. I said, what sounds high to you? He said, we're only getting 3% in the local bank. He said, I don't know. I guess maybe 5 or 6%. I said, Wayne, I can't pay you 5 or 6%. I said, but I can pay you 8%. He said, put me down for $250,000. And the very next day, I went to Wayne's home and his wife, sat down with him, and I went over the entire program that I'd put together, the interest rate that I would pay, the length of the note, how they're protected, not borrowing unsecured money. We give every lender the deed of trust or the mortgage and the promissory note, and we name them on the insurance policies, the mortgagee. So I went over the details of the program, bearing in mind, I didn't bring up any deals because
Mhm.
desperation's got a smell to it. And I had those 2 deals still under contract, but I'm just talking the program, right? So I shared the program with them. They both loved it. And that $250,000 became $500,000
Wow.
in that conversation at their home. Again, here's a big part of the sauce. I was not pitching a deal. I was talking about an opportunity to get involved in a program as to when I've got a deal available. And so at the end of that conversation, and they had 500,000 available, I said, I'll put your money to work for you just as soon as possible. So 3 days goes by and I call them back up with the good news phone call on those deals that I had under contract, right? And so, again, it's so important to separate those conversations about the program and the opportunity you have, and then actually having deals for the individual to fund.
Hmm.
So that's how it started out. And your own network is going to dry up. You're only going to get so much money from your own network. Interestingly enough, of the 47 private lenders I have, not one of them had ever heard of private money or private lending until I put on my teacher hat and told them about it. But a number of these 47 private lenders that I'm using, number one, I've never met them in person. I've talked to
Wow.
them over the telephone.
Yeah.
But who do you think a number of those 47 private lenders are that we're using today? They are referrals
Hmm.
from my own network that they have referred, because private lenders can't keep their mouth shut. They're going to be telling their friends and neighbors and family members the kind of returns that they're getting. So that's the way you started out, to where you don't have to do any chasing or begging. Now, when's the worst time in the world to be looking for private money and a private lender? When you need it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that exactly. Yeah.
When you need it for a deal, right?
Yep.
And so you want to establish these relationships and start spreading the word about your private lending program before you're like I was in the corner and scared you're going to be losing a deal. It's not chase fearful or scared situations, right? You want to be confident, you want to be cool, you want to be collected. And it's just a matter of fact. Here's what you got going on. Share with people what you're doing. It's that simple. One way to find new private lenders of people that you don't even know is just share on social media. If you're doing deals, and by the way, we're not asking for money. We never ask for money. But here's a really cool way that you can attract people that you've never met before. You can post on Facebook or Instagram or whatever your social media is, and you can show a picture of a house or whatever commercial. It's all the same money. If you're raising money for commercial properties, we just structure it differently. You can show a picture of a property and just put the bullet points up here. Hey, bought this property for X, sold it for X, profited X, and your private lender or investor made X amount of dollars. Notice I'm not putting percentage rates or returns or interest rates or anything like that. And my private lender or my investor made X dollars. And here's the call to action. Want to talk money? DM me.
Yep.
And now you're
Yep.
not openly soliciting. You're just sharing what you're doing and inviting people to talk money.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I want to go back to how you approached this, and completely agree. You don't want to seem desperate or anything like that. But like you said, you had these few opportunities that were floating around in the back of your mind as you're having these initial conversations. And then you said 2 or 3 days later, you went back to them and said, okay, now we have a deal to put your money to work. What Do you have a window, if you will, that you found is the right amount of time? Like, had you left that person's house and a few hours later you gave them a call, was that enough time to let this sit and percolate? Or do you feel like there's a certain set amount of time to set that seed and let people get excited with the things, with the opportunity, and then follow up with them? I'm just curious if you found a right amount of time or a right amount of percolation set in time that you feel works well to be able to have people willing to jump in and participate in that particular opportunity.
That's a great question. And the answer comes down to managing expectations. So with that first private lender or couple that I told the story about, I knew I had deals under contract, but I wasn't bringing that up in the conversation yet. So I managed their expectation by saying, I will probably be able to call you within the next few days
Mm.
and put your money to work. So they were looking for the next few days. Now, something to be cautious about, and that is when you have a new private lender. And by the way, let me sidestep here a second, Matt, and I'll come back to what I was getting ready to say. I'm going to take a little risk. I'm going to take a little risk here. I'm going to say something. You may disagree with me. If you disagree with me, I'm sure you'll tell me. But I'm just going to tell you right now what drives me crazy and makes me just want to go run head on into a brick wall every time I hear it. Have you ever heard the guru or the teacher on the platform that's doing a real estate investing conference? And they'll say something to the effect of this. They'll say, Oh, just get the deal under contract.
Yeah.
The money will show up.
Yep.
You ever heard that?
Oh, all the time. Yep.
And I want to throw up. They'll say, oh, if it's a good enough deal, the money finds the deal.
Yeah.
And them poor people out there in the audience believe that line of bull hockey. And they'll go calling up FISBOs, get the deal under contract. I got the deal under contract. Money's supposed to show up now. Where is it supposed to show up? Is it supposed to just like rain out of clouds? And so that's why I practice and preach, get the money lined up first. Now, if you're wholesaling and you've got a list of cash buyers, then you know where the money's coming from. But you got your list of cash buyers lined up first. You still got the money lined up first, so you know where to go. I just don't want to be out there getting deals under contract, and I don't have a clue where the funding is coming from.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I digress.
I completely agree. I love the digression. It was perfect. Love it.
But back to managing expectations. So when you're visiting with a new potential private lender, one of the first questions they're going to ask, and it's going to show you, this is a buying signal. This is a buying signal when they ask this question. On average, ordinarily, how soon do you think you'd be able to put my money to work? Because they know they're not going to make any money. And so I do my best to answer the question without putting myself in a box. So the answer to the answer I give is typically, on average, I can't guarantee. So see, I'm managing expectations. I can't guarantee because I don't know what the market's going to do. I might get 3 deals under contract this week, and then I might go 3 weeks and have no deals under contract. Who knows what the market's going to do? But with you being my new private lender, I'm going to put you at the top of the queue ahead of my other private lenders because you're brand new, and I'm going to put your money to work on the very next deal that I've got. Typically, on average, that's going to happen within 30 days to 3 months from now. But I promise you, I'll put it to work for you just as soon as possible. So again, I don't want to tell them 30 days for sure or 60 days, because if you haven't done and performed that in that length of time, then you just shot yourself in the foot, and now you're not performing based on what you said in that conversation. So I like to give a range. I say on average, I can't guarantee. Who knows what the market's going to do, but I'm going to look after you first.
Yeah. I love this. I love this. You've got a great polish to you here. And I'm curious to take this all the way back to when you first started making those calls when I think you said you were 12 years old. Did you guys have did you have any type of scripts or anything that you were learning from to be able to set those initial conversations up? Because again, you have a great way I feel like this is a problem that a lot of people struggle with, where they don't necessarily understand how to present the opportunity and when to pull these different levers and whatnot. And it seems like you had a very good handle on all of that. And again, obviously you've been doing this for so long. So I'm just curious, like some of those things that you've learned, the techniques and whatnot over the years, did this happen very early on, or is this from your obvious experience over the years in a sales environment? Just talk a little bit about that learning and how you evolved.
Sure. Let me give some advice to whether someone's brand new, never been in sales, never raised any private money. Let me give some general advice that would really serve you. One big problem that I see real estate investors, whether they're brand new or they're seasoned and they've never raised private money before, if they're just starting out to attracting private money, here is the most common mistake. You talk too much. You talk too much. You sound like you're selling. You're trying to talk somebody into something. And so how do we fix that? How do we fix that? Here's how you fix it. You're not selling anybody. You're teaching. You're simply teaching this world. And none of my 47 private lenders had ever heard of this world. Now, one big category where there are private lenders are existing private lenders, individuals that are already loaning money out. You're not putting your teacher hat on with those people. There's nothing to teach them. They already know what private money and private lending is. That's a negotiation conversation. I don't get too excited about negotiation conversations because I like to make the rules. I set the interest rate. It's my program. I've been having my private lenders pay the same exact interest rate ever since 2009. It doesn't matter what the market does. If market rates are going up or market rates are going down, that doesn't matter because the market doesn't determine our program as to what we're offering people. One question that I've recently did, they say, Jay, how in the world are you still paying your private lenders 8% and interest rates have gone up out of sight? I said, it's real simple. Number one, it's my program and I make the rules. And number two, 8% is still about double as to what you can get down at the local bank certificate of deposit. So back to the advice. You don't want to be coming anytime I feel like I'm pushing or anytime I feel like I'm starting to sell somebody on this opportunity, I pull back. In fact, I have a little visual when I'm visiting with someone that this is new to and they've never heard of this world of private money. I visualize actually having one of my feet in the door getting ready to leave, right? And here's why. There's so much more money than there are deals. There's so much more money. Prior to COVID, there was $18 trillion available in cash in the United States that people didn't know what to do with, sitting in retirement accounts and et cetera. Today, this side of COVID, $31 trillion in cash, in retirement accounts, in investment capital, just sitting on the sidelines that people don't know what to do with. So what do? We put on our teacher hat and we just share. It all comes down to leading with a servant's heart and really truly being interested in the other person. Another common mistake that comes down to talking too much is don't try to be interesting. Don't try to be interesting when you're talking with somebody else. Be interested. Be interested in them. What are they looking to accomplish? I love to start conversations with did you know questions. I love did you know questions. I'll be having a casual conversation with an acquaintance or somebody in my network or whatever, and I'll say, by the way, did you know there's a way people can make unlimited money per year, tax deferred or tax free? They never heard of that before. How in the world can I make unlimited money tax free? What am I talking about? They don't know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how someone can use a Roth IRA that's been moved over or opened in a self-directed IRA company. And now all the returns they get on that money are tax-free because that's after-tax dollars in that retirement fund. So I'll ask that question. Did you know there's a way people can make unlimited money tax-free a year? Of course, they're not going to know the answer to that question. So my follow-up question, I say, have you by chance ever heard of self-directed IRAs? There's a 99.9% chance they never heard of that either, even financial advisors. And I'll say, let me tell you what a self-directed IRA company is. And so by simply asking those two questions, now I'm able to share valuable information with the person that I'm talking with. I was having fried chicken and pork barbecue at Smithfield's restaurant on Sunday after church a few years ago, visiting with my friend Bruce, who was 3 years away from retiring with Fannie Mae. Now, this is funny. An officer at Fannie Mae, I'm having fried chicken and barbecue with here in Morehead City. And the reason he was here, he was living in Dallas. The reason he's here is because this is where he grew up as a kid. And I'm having this conversation. He never heard of self-directed IRAs, and he's with Fannie Mae.
Wow.
And so we're talking along, and I tell him about my program. He says, Jay, that sounds interesting. He says, I can't do anything with my retirement money because I don't retire for 3 more years. I said, how do you know that? He said, I can't touch my retirement money until I retire. I said, Bruce, I want you to do yourself a favor. I said, when you get back home next week, you call up your plan administrator at Fannie Mae or wherever your pension or your 401k or whatever it is you got, and you ask your plan administrator, because you've been with the company for 27 years, do you have the option to move at no penalty and no tax effect a portion of your retirement funds in another investment vehicle? Did you know they let him move up to 50% of his retirement funds out of the plan because he'd been there for 27 years, so he didn't have to wait. But anyway, Matt, what question am I answering, for goodness sakes?
No, it was all about I think we were going back to
Oh,
the
conversations.
yeah, the conversations, the tips and tricks that you've learned over the years and things that have worked well to be able to
Yeah. That's what triggered me to share the did you know questions and
yeah,
how you start a conversation. And there's all kinds of ways to attract private money. I just shared a little story with one on one. Wayne at Bible study on Wednesday night. That was one on one. But in addition to that, I've raised $969,000 at one private lender luncheon where I invited people to a luncheon and I bought them lunch. And I had my CPA there and my real estate attorney and my realtor and my team members. And I fed them lunch. And then 20 minutes after the hour, I did my little 20-minute PowerPoint presentation about what's private money and how you can get high rates of return safely and securely without pitching any deals. And so out of that one luncheon was almost $1 million.
wow.
Takes the same amount of time to teach your private lending program in front of 20 people as it does one person, you
Yeah.
know. And that brings up a really good point I want to make. It all comes down to intentionality, right? But you don't have to go out and do the private lender luncheons and all that. You just weave in to your life what you're already doing.
Mhm.
Like, for example, another Wednesday night at church, Larry is his name. He and his wife were visiting from Mississippi, and I'd known them for some period of time. And after Bible study, I asked him a question. I said, Larry, I said, are you investing in anything these days? And for all he knew, I was getting ready to ask his advice about he's investing. I said, Larry, you invest in anything these days? He says, yeah, I'm in the stock market. I said, how's that working out for you? He says, it ain't working out so good. I said, I got a 16-minute audio here that I want you to listen to. And if it makes any sense to you, you give me a call. My cell number's on the front. This was when we had CDs. Now I just text the link to them.
Yep.
And so Larry listened to that little 16-minute audio, which did not spill the beans on my private lending program, but it introduced what private money was. It wasn't long before Larry and his wife became $1,250,000 private lenders. How did that come about? I simply asked a question. Are you investing in anything these days? How's that working for you? Here's a 16-minute audio to listen to. Tell me if you got any interest in that, give me a call. Am I selling anything? No.
Yeah, you're helping.
Am I sharing valuable information?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's an example. Let the tools do the work and you don't have to chase anybody.
Yeah. This is great. This is great. Are you currently doing any type of advertising, would you say, for the private lenders at this point, or is it still very much so word of mouth and referral only? Is that the only path that you go?
That's right.
Yeah.
What will happen to people that are listening to this episode? What will happen is when you start attracting and sharing what private money is and et cetera, something will happen pretty quick. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to have more money than you can use, which is a
Mm.
good problem. That's a good problem. But I've had a juggling exercise ever since I started attracting private money of being able to put the money to work.
Mhm.
Of course, I run a mastermind group and of other real estate investors are in my mastermind group. And when I got a few $100,000 laying around that I can't use, I'll introduce my mastermind member that's in my group to one of my private lenders because they want to be making money. The private lender, they don't want it just sitting around. But no, in answer to your question, I am not intentionally and haven't for a while attracting private money for myself because it's a challenge for me to keep all my private lenders happy with what they've got with
Mhm.
me. And the same thing's
Mhm.
going to happen to your audience as well when they start doing this.
Yeah, that is really powerful. You mentioned when we first started talking about some programs and whatnot that you have that are coming out right now. You want to jump in and talk a little bit about that?
I'd love to. I'm so excited. I just have finished recording my private money 7-day challenge. So, what in the world is a private money 7-day challenge? And a lot of your audience have heard of challenges because they've become quite popular. But the way my 7-day private money challenge works is that I have recorded, just finished them, they're hot off the press, 15 to 20 minutes each video training. And So it's very consumable. It's not like a ton of information, but it's very valuable. And it breaks down exactly how I go about raising private money without ever asking for it. And so it's 7 days in a row. When you enroll in the 7-day private money challenge, you immediately in your inbox, in your email, you get the first 15, 20-minute training. And then every day, 6 days later in a row at 10 a.m. Eastern time, you get the next video training. And so we have a lot of fun. You learn how to raise private money without ever having to ask for it. So come join the party. You can enroll in the 7-day private money challenge by simply going to jayconner.com. And I'm an ER, not an OR. So JAYCONNER.com/7 days. And that's the numeral 7 days, and that's plural. So Jay Conner with an ER, JAYCONNER.com, jayconner.com/7 days. And that'll get you right into the challenge.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love it. And this is always something that a lot of people in business struggle with, is obviously raising money, raising capital. Would you say that these techniques work for people outside of real estate as well? If they have some type of business or industry that they might be trying to raise for, could these
Absolutely.
techniques and
The techniques are the same, but the structure is different. For example, in this world of single family homes, when a private lender funds a deal, I'm not borrowing the money unsecured. You can, but I'm not. I'm giving my private lender a mortgage here in North Carolina. It's a deed of trust. So that collateralizes the promissory note. I name them on the insurance policy as the mortgagee. That gives them another layer of protection. But if you're just raising venture capital for a business or your entrepreneurial venture, then in that case, you may establish a fund and they're investing in a fund. And that type of arrangement would be more or less an unsecured arrangement, sort of like they'd be investing in stocks or a mutual fund, except it's your fund. But
Mhm.
the techniques and the strategies of attracting it without chasing, it's all the same principles.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, this is obviously, again, one of those techniques that a lot of people need help with. And it sounds like you've, again, have a great way of presenting all of this and a great process to be able to bring all this home. So, yeah, I love it. I love it. Would you say that there's any place else that you'd like people to reach out and maybe ask questions or anything like that? Or is that the best path for people to start getting in contact with you if they're interested in? uh,
Yeah, coming right on into the challenge, that's the great way to start because I start with the basics in the 7-day private money challenge. And we go into some more advanced techniques as well, but that's a great way to start.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for the time, the techniques, the advice. Yeah, this is going to help a lot of people out, and hopefully we can get some people from the listeners into your program as well.
Awesome. Matt, thank you so much for inviting me to come along, and God bless you.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Invest in Square Feet. I hope Jay's nuggets of wisdom on ditching the sales pitch and embracing the teacher's mindset have sparked some serious inspiration for your private lending game. If you enjoyed this episode, don't be shy. Hit that subscribe button, drop a rating, and leave a review. And of course, don't forget to share it with your fellow real estate aficionados, and let's keep this knowledge train rolling. Stay tuned for more tips and tricks and game-changing insights in our upcoming episodes. Until then, keep sharpening those skills and growing those investments. I'm Matt Shields. I'll catch you next time.